Hi, I'm Jeremiah Lewis. I'm a writer and a producer, and I'm having conversations with other creatives who are interested in demystifying the filmmaking process, from writing to directing, producing to acting, and everything in between. Today, I'm talking with Jenn Dunn, a writer, producer, director, and all-around creative force. The reason that I wanted to talk to you specifically is because I feel like it's really cool to connect with other creators and other filmmakers, especially just to kind of like get a sense of like what the process is like, what challenges you've had to overcome, what sort of experiences you've had in the making of your own things. And like, I'm trying to find a way to pull myself out of my own process a little bit so that I can give people more value, because like my experience is just my experience. No one is going to experience it the same way. And so I think that if I can bring more voices in, and these are the things that they encountered, these are the challenges that they had, and like help like share value, I guess. And I really appreciate you giving me the time to just chat about your stuff and see what you're up to.
Thank you. And oh yeah, I did want to mention when you asked if I was doing anything creative, I am in post on 3 short films, which is
So I know you've got Grandpa, right? That's one. And
Yes.
then what are the other two?
Another one called Flash Drive that was just a silly, like
Okay.
when COVID was still new, before vaccines
Right.
and everything, we were like, can we do a totally masked, totally outdoors, shoot in one day? And I challenged some of my friends to write me a script, and a bunch of people, give me little 2-3 page scripts.
Yeah.
And one of them was just it's a teen sex comedy, believe it or not, which is really not my style. Nothing I would ever write. But it's
Right.
fun.
Right.
It's charming. It's got a lot of heart. It's not
Yeah.
raunchy or anything like that. And so we did that in a day at my house. And this was February 2021, I believe that we filmed this. And I'm still waiting on post just because, everybody worked for free. The editor's working for free. So we're just, that's one. And then there's one called The Service, which I actually worked with the wonderful Susan Gallagher.
And you also directed that then?
I did not. I actually hired a director. I did not think I wanted to direct for a long time, but then I had to direct Grandpa because I just couldn't. It was too close to me, too personal to me. And so I did direct that. Still don't know if I love it, but I felt like that was it's based on a true story. It's based on my little sister. Mm-hmm. It's set in where I'm from. So it was almost like I'm the only person that can really just direct this.
I remember reading that script and thinking, this is really like super narrow in terms of like you have to have that experience, and you could tell that it was written from the heart. So I think you made the right move, even if directing isn't like ultimately your thing. Like it's good to have the experience, because like you get to understand that process of like what it takes to make a film, even if it's just a short. Like it's a lot of freaking work.
Actually, for anybody who's reading, listening, whatever we're going to end up doing with this, I'm looking for a director who has kind of my same sensibilities. Probably she needs to be from the South and probably lower class, like, from very close to the trailer park kind of situation. If I found a director like me who just doesn't really want to write, she wants to direct and I want to write, oh my gosh, we would
the ideal scenario.
Ideal. Yeah, I've been looking for that person for a long time. I have not found her yet, but you never know. I mean, that's, got to keep putting it out in the universe.
Can you tell me like what your process is when you're looking for people, like other creatives to work with, and what have you done?
I mean, sure. I've kind of went both ways on that. Like, well, first of all, I'm lucky I live in Atlanta. We have a huge, film crew scene. So that's amazing. And I have a little core group of folks that I really love. I met them actually. I took some film classes during it was before the pandemic. I took a little career sabbatical and was like looking around like, what am I going to do with my life? And then I was like, wait, I always wanted to be a TV writer when I was like 15. Let me check that again. And it just kind of worked out. I like wrote my very first pilot won the Atlanta Film Festival. I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm good at that. I don't know. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm like this. Went to a film festival, met some people from a school. Like really, it's a lot of serendipity. I met some teachers from a local school. It's about an hour and a half away from my home because I live out in the middle of nowhere. Went to some classes, met a bunch of people through there, like either people who had taken the classes or, the teacher's friends. And I just have a good core little group of people. Like I have a DP who I love. Just, he's amazing. He does not realize his worth and doesn't charge me enough. And one day he will. And then I'm, good for him though. I want him to. Like I want him to be a zillionaire. Same thing. I have, sound people, I have continuity people who I just really love to work with. And also the good thing about that too is like if they're busy, which they're all getting really busy because they're great at what they do, they always have somebody else to recommend to me. And then I have, 2 continuity people and 2 sound people I can call.
Right. Yeah. So really like it sounds like to me you just you've really put yourself out there. You've connected through, like live events, festivals and meetups and things like that. So really you kind of can't avoid the meeting people part, which I think a lot of screenwriters struggle with sometimes. Like, we're all introverts to a certain degree. It's really difficult to get out of our shell. But yeah, ultimately, if you want to have your films made, you kind of have to connect with those people and make relationships happen.
This is maybe a pro tip. My local film office. Now, I just sort of struck up a friendship with the people at the film office. So if I don't have anybody, and they help with locations and stuff too, so I can email Molly at the film office, and she'll, oh yeah, we have these 5 locations and whatnot.
Right.
Just but it is a lot of relying on people and a lot of not being afraid to ask people for help. I think I probably would have called and tried to get a meeting if I did not, have that. I would have definitely tried to go there in person, because I think a lot of times your passion shows through when you're in person way more than it would in an email. For example, email's easy to ignore, especially if you're asking for the stuff. So yeah, try to get that in-person meeting. Even if you think I'm shy, I'm an introvert, your passion is going to show through, and people are going to, you're taking people on this journey with you. You're not trying to convince them to do something for you. And I think if you kind of change the mindset a little to be like, hey, I want you to come in with me on this cool thing I'm doing, people are going to feel that from you.
Getting something started can often be the most difficult part, because it's like you're overcoming so much inertia. It's like, getting a rocket ship to rise up off the ground. Like, most of the thrust happens in the first 3 seconds. And then after that, it's momentum. What's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome, whether it's personal, professional, logistics, whatever, it could be anything, in terms of getting a project off the ground?
I think mine are pretty internal. There's 2. I give myself a timeline, just hey, this has got to get done by then. And a lot of times that can help too. Say you're filming outside and it needs to be summer. Well, hey, I need to get it done over the summer. That kind of thing can help. And then second is just giving myself accountability. So say I get with somebody and I'm like, hey, we're shooting on this date. We have the location for this date. We have whatever. And just look, it's got to get done. It's got to get done that day.
It's a great way to motivate you to move forward and not get sort of bogged down in the details. Because I think filmmaking is so much of, it's just, there's so much you have to deal with. Have you been stymied in your filmmaking?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I got stymied a little bit with Grandpa. At first, he was going to be a transparent ghost. We had some cool special effects for him and everything. But then turns out my actress lives in Germany. She lived in LA when I cast her, which was still very difficult for me in Atlanta. I was like, man, I got to pay her plane ticket to get for LA to Atlanta. Well, during the pandemic, she, as an actress, wasn't getting the work that she needed to stay on her work visa. Nobody was. So she had to go back to Germany. So I had to see if I could get her to come visit me from Germany. So then I only had a few days for her, because, she's a busy actress, busy schedule, things like that. Yeah, I was just stymied. I literally did not have the time. Now, of course, I look at Grandpa, the cuts of it. There's shots that we didn't get that I was how did we not get that shot? Just 2, but 2 kind of significant, small kind of insert type shots. And I was like, we missed those somehow. And it was just because we were going fast, something with the shot list. Did we forget it? It wasn't, I think it was me, the director. I don't think it was continuity or the DP. I think it was me just forgetting the shot, or just, trying to hurry and all that stuff. So yeah, I've been stymied plenty of times. And mainly it is I would call that probably a failure of planning on my part. And yeah, and that's just something that comes with experience. Right. And I think I read sometimes about people, in Hollywood on TV shows, yeah, something went wrong with the camera and we weren't able to use that shot, or something went wrong. And I'm like, see, it happens to everybody. So I don't feel quite so bad, but it does kind of, when you're trying to make a short film and you've been working on it. I worked on Grandpa for a couple years because we were going to film it right before the pandemic started. So we had to wait and all that stuff. So yeah, I feel like, damn it, I should have done a little bit better on that. But that's going to happen to you on every one of your films, everybody. So see, I'm beating myself up right now. I've beat myself up over things in every movie that I've made.
Would you say that your relationship as a producer is different than your relationship as the writer? Because I know you typically do the writing and the producing. What changes when you become the producer versus when you're the writer?
So, of course, as a producer, you got to get that budget down. All of a sudden, in Grandpa, I think I had 11 locations at first for a 13-page script. Why did I do this to myself? I wrote Grandpa when I was a very new writer. So, yeah, of course, I had to pare those down. For example, we had her the main character who's disabled, go to her physical therapist's office. But then I was like, you know what? And where I'm from, this does not happen, but we're just going to have the physical therapist come to her house. We're going to just, and that works.
That works.
works. But that was my producer brain going, mm-mm-mm.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I want to caution writers against, though, and I think I'm doing this really, really, I'm starting to do this a lot because I'm a producer as well. When I'm writing, I start thinking like a producer. I'm like, oh, wait, you know what? This could also be at that same tennis court. This could be, and like, stop it. Just don't do it. Like, unless you're trying to sell the movie to somebody for, $1 million budget or $5 million budget or something, like just write what you want to write. And then that producer, some mean producer will come in there later and get rid of all your fun.
They'll break your heart later. They'll make you rewrite it later.
Exactly. So just do what you want at first.
I think that my tendency, because now I'm in the producing seat as well, and my tendency is also to think as a producer when I'm writing. And I ran into this issue on the first draft of Lucid, which is the feature that I'm working on. And I wrote it specifically to a very small, relatively small budget. And when I gave the script to Cameron and Zach, my producing partners, their comment was, yeah, I know we said that you should write to a budget. That was a mistake. It's not that it was bad, but you could tell that there was something missing because you're writing with weird constraints. Like as screenwriters, you should always write with constraints, but also you have to be free with those constraints.
Exactly. And sometimes, also trying to get somebody to love your script, you need to just put all the magic in there. And sometimes the magic is because you see a helicopter land. But then later, maybe we just hear the helicopter.
I do want you to have a chance to talk about the stuff you're working on, because that's something that benefits screenwriters and, is sort of crucial to building community and helping writers grow as writers and as networkers. So talk about what that app is and what it's for.
Well, sure. So I come from startups. That's kind of what I do in my professional life. I love a very early stage startup. I'd never really started anything from the beginning though. So when I got into screenwriting, I was on sabbatical from my job. I was very lucky to be able to do that. A lot of people can't just take, 6 months to a year off during the middle of their career. I was super lucky. So I was thinking things I want to do. I got into filmmaking, screenwriting, things like that. But then I also started, getting to the Twitter community, noticed people, entering competitions. They're paying money to classes. They're paying money to these gurus and script doctors and things like that, which I have had luck with, all of those things. I've spent a lot of money on screenwriting, competitions and things like that, because I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know anybody. Here's a competition. Let me throw $65 at this or whatever. Or the professional writers would talk about their writers group. And they would say, oh yeah, I run it, people, what do you do the first thing with your script? Oh, I run it by my writers group first thing. And I was like, writers group? And then I was like, well, everybody must have a writers group. Wow, what a dummy I am. I just, I missed out on this key part. So I just sent out a random tweet. I was like, hey, you guys, I figured out I need a writers group. How did you find yours? And a bunch of people were back like, I do too. And I don't know how to find one. I mean, I kind of felt validated. I was like, okay, good. I'm not the only one that doesn't have a writers group. But then I realized oh crap, this is a thing. So I do come from a tech background. I'm not a developer, but I have developer friends. And I just was talking to a friend about it. He's like, oh my gosh, this is such a, this is really a good proof of concept right here. We just kind of kept it in stealth mode. The only time I've ever marketed it really is on Twitter, because it also was just very ugly. But lately it's become beautiful because a designer friend of mine pitched in again, just wanting to kind of help everybody. And so it's called notescommunity.com. So a community to give you notes.com. You can log in there and just kind of browse all the screenwriting groups, see if one fits the bill for you, or you can start your own.
That's so cool. That is so cool. You found a need because you had it yourself, and then you discovered other people had it. You used Twitter as a proof of concept, float the idea to see if it had traction. It clearly did, and then you just took initiative and made it happen.
Yeah, and we have over 1,000 users now. It was 1,033 last time I looked. About 37% are in a group. So that's kind of one of my next things. I want to get more users to convert and join groups. So I've been doing market research and stuff. It's just been really fun kind of. I don't charge anything for it. It actually costs me money. So that's not the most, I don't love that, but that's kind of the next step is where it's I got to pay my rent. Let me figure myself out. But now I'm a little older than a lot of people in the screenwriting community. And I've already had one career. So I feel like I'm in a good position to kind of give back. And I don't expect people who are 21 trying to pay their rent to give back yet. But when they get here, it's nice to be a role model maybe. And then people, when they get to where I'm at, then they can give back.
Beautiful sentiment, beautiful philosophy. I love it. So thank you again. This has been amazing. I appreciate you.
All right, Jeremiah, thanks again and take care.
All right. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on social media and subscribe to my channel. We'll see you next time.